Welcome, sleepy traveler. You're safe here. The day is done, and you've arrived at a quiet space where the past unfolds not in shouts or clamor, but in whispers and soft glows of memory. Let's close the doors of the present and gently open the shutters of history. Tonight, we're going on a slow and dreamy walk through time, through the story of coins and currency. But we won't rush, we won't worry. There's nothing to understand or memorize, just the calm rhythm of human history, as steady as a heartbeat. Let your eyes rest, let your breathing slow. You may imagine a soft fire crackling nearby. Perhaps in the distance, a bell rings gently in the wind, and as the shadows grow longer in your mind, we begin at the very beginning. Long before metal coins clinked in pockets, people traded what they had for what they needed. Imagine a peaceful, sun-drenched village, perhaps 10,000 years ago. A place without writing, without numbers. But even then, people had things to offer, and things they hoped to receive. A farmer with extra grain, a potter with strong, round jars, a shepherd with milk and wool. They met in the market, or sometimes in quiet corners of the world, and simply exchanged. One bundle of wheat for 2 clay pots, one fine sheep's fleece for a basket of dried figs. There were no receipts, no fixed prices, just trust, familiarity, and a shared sense of value. But barter, while simple, had limits. What if the potter didn't want grain? What if the shepherd needed shoes, but the shoemaker had no need for wool? The world was growing, and people needed something more portable, more durable, more universal. And so, the idea of currency, something to represent value, was quietly born. Before coins, people used what was available: shells, beads, and rare stones. In the lands near the Indian Ocean, cowrie shells were prized. Their gentle curves and pale shimmer made them feel valuable, like tiny oceanic gems. For centuries, they passed from hand to hand across entire continents. In other parts of the world, people used polished stones, worked metal pieces, even dried fish in colder regions. Each society chose what worked, but what mattered most was that people believed in it. That belief, quiet, collective, and persistent, turned objects into currency. The world had begun to agree that value could live inside a thing, even if that thing could not be eaten or worn. And still, across quiet fields and by busy rivers, trade continued. With every exchange, the idea of money took shape. Metal, durable, shapely, weighty. It was a natural evolution. Some of the earliest forms of metal money weren't coins at all, but ingots shaped like knives or spades. In China, bronze tools became standardized for trade. They were not sharp, not meant to be used, but were shaped like familiar tools, comfortingly ordinary. Elsewhere, lumps of silver and copper were weighed. The scales, often handmade, gave a sense of fairness, and soon, tiny marks began to appear: symbols, seals, stamps. These were not decorations, they were guarantees, proof that someone, somewhere, usually a king or merchant, promised the metal was real. In Lydia, a small kingdom in what is now Turkey, history changed forever. Around 600 BCE, King Alyattes, and later his son Croesus, minted the world's first true coins. They were round, they were stamped, and they were made of electrum, a natural mix of gold and silver. Each coin was a promise of value, a whisper of trust in a loud world. And suddenly, trade became easier. You didn't need to know the other person. You only needed to recognize the coin. Once Lydia minted coins, the idea spread, quietly and then rapidly. The Greeks saw their utility. The Romans improved their design. In India, tiny silver punch-marked coins were used as early as the 6th century BCE. Each coin carried not just value, but stories. Some bore the faces of gods, others mythical beasts, still others simple geometric marks. You might close your eyes and imagine a weary trader, dust clinging to their cloak, reaching into a pouch and placing a single heavy coin on a marble counter. The coin glints in the sun. The merchant nods, and just like that, bread or fabric or spice changes hands. The clink of coins, the rustle of goods, the low murmur of agreement. Trade had a sound, a rhythm, a tempo, a music of exchange, and all across the ancient world, coins became part of life, tucked into tunics, hidden in pots, buried with the dead. They were tools, but also memories. As the Roman Empire expanded, so did its coins. From the wind-swept edges of Britannia to the sun-baked streets of Alexandria, Roman coins were everywhere. Silver denarii, bronze asses, and the famed aureus of gold. Each told a story in metal. On one side, the emperor's face, serene or stern, crowned with laurel or wrapped in a military cloak. On the other, an image of Rome's ideals, victory with wings outstretched, justice holding a scale, or a temple standing still and silent. Coins were more than currency. They were tiny messages, carried in pockets and purses, passed from hand to hand, a whisper from the emperor to the people. You might imagine a Roman innkeeper sweeping the floor at dusk, lanterns flickering, counting out bronze coins onto a worn table. Each one smooth from use, each one carrying the weight of the empire. Coins touched every layer of Roman life. In cities, children were given coins for small sweets or toys. In markets, fishmongers and bakers handled them with flour-dusted hands. In the countryside, taxes were paid in coin, collected into wooden chests bound for the capital. Even in temples, coins were offered quietly, left on altars as prayers in metal form. Roman soldiers carried their pay in coin, marching across borders, building roads, and spreading the empire's currency like seeds in foreign soil. For the common citizen, coins brought consistency. The face on the coin told them who ruled. The weight and stamp told them what it was worth. A shared system stretching across thousands of miles. Imagine walking down a cobbled Roman street, sandals tapping softly, and hearing the faint clink of coin against coin as a merchant opens his pouch. Peaceful, steady, trusted. But even the strongest systems can shift, slowly, gently. As the centuries passed, Rome's coins changed. Once rich in silver and gold, they began to lose their luster. A process called debasement, when coins are made with less precious metal, crept in quietly. Emperors facing wars and rising costs reduced the silver in denarii, then replaced gold ori with lighter versions. Coins that once gleamed with weighty worth became thinner, duller. Still useful, but changed. To the average Roman, it may have been a subtle thing. A coin that looked slightly different, a price that had crept upward, a marketplace that felt a little less certain. Still, the coins moved on, through hands, into jars, down through time. Even as the empire fractured and cities grew quieter, coins kept moving. When the Western Roman Empire faded, it didn't vanish in fire or thunder. It simply shifted. Smaller kingdoms arose. Local rulers minted their own coins, rougher, sometimes misshapen, but meaningful to those who used them. In Anglo-Saxon England, tiny silver pennies carried the names of kings with simple crosses. In Frankish lands, deniers echoed the Roman denarius, and in the far-off Islamic world, dinars of gold and dirhams of silver were struck with calligraphy and reverence without images, but full of meaning. Coins were still tools of trust, symbols of rule and order. And as the medieval world emerged from the ruins of Rome, new systems of money began, slower, smaller, but deeply rooted. Imagine a monk in a scriptorium, pausing between lines of illuminated text, slipping a single silver coin into a small wooden box. The room quiet, but for the scratching of quills and the hush of candlelight. Money was changing, but gently and with time. In medieval villages, coins were rarer than in Rome. Most trade was done in goods again, grain, wool, cheese. But when coins were used, they carried power. A penny might pay a laborer for days. A silver coin could settle a debt or buy a tool. Minting coins became a mark of sovereignty. Kings built mints in castles. Priests blessed coin production. Craftsmen carefully engraved dies, pressing images into blanks of metal. Each coin a small circular promise of trust, of value, of continuity. Imagine a farmer walking miles to market, a single coin tied carefully into the corner of a woven cloth. It jingles softly as he walks, a sound both precious and fragile. These coins did not travel far, but their meaning was deep. Some coins were never spent. They were buried under thresholds for luck, slipped into graves as quiet companions for the journey beyond, hidden in walls for future hands to find. Coins became symbols, not just of trade, but of time, of moments, of memory. In cathedrals, pilgrims left coins near relics. In forests, coins were pressed into sacred trees. In towns, people scratched crosses into coins before giving them to beggars. Tiny acts, silent prayers, soft exchanges, and through it all, the coin remained. A small, round, heavy thing, touched by kings and farmers, monks and mothers, holding within it not just value, but centuries of trust. As the high medieval period unfolded, something stirred across the quiet countryside and stone towns of Europe. Trade returned. Markets grew louder, ships ventured farther, and roads once empty saw wagons full of cloth, salt, and spices. With trade came coins, more of them, more often. Silver pennies became florins, groats, and guilders. Gold coins shimmered in sunlit counting houses. In cities like Florence, Bruges, and Venice, money began to move not just between hands, but between lives, between towns, overseas, and across time. Coins were returning, not as relics, but as rhythms. With trade came merchants, and with merchants came order. Guilds formed, groups of traders, craftsmen, and money handlers. Together, they set rules, settled disputes, and shaped the way commerce flowed. A young apprentice might sweep a money changer's shop in the morning, then watch coins weighed and counted in the afternoon. He would learn the value not only of metal, but of trust, of reputation, of calm calculation. In great halls lit by candlelight, guild members debated coin quality, foreign exchange, and fair price. And outside those halls, the towns grew richer, one quiet coin at a time. By the 13th century, gold had returned in earnest. Florence introduced the florin, an elegant gold coin marked with the lily of the city. Venice minted the ducat, its surface engraved with the Doge kneeling before Saint. Mark. These coins traveled widely, trusted by merchants from the Baltic to Baghdad, passed through the hands of jewelers, sailors, abbots, and apothecaries. They were smooth, weighty, and beautifully made. Imagine a merchant aboard a Mediterranean ship, cradling a small pouch of florins, their gentle clink blending with the sound of waves. As money moved farther, the need for safety and trust grew stronger. So, banks were born. In cities like Florence and Genoa, Families like the Medici opened quiet offices with wooden counters and strong locks. They recorded deposits in books. They issued letters of credit, so a merchant in Paris could be paid in Cairo. Coins no longer needed to move, just promises, just trust. It was a quiet revolution. No battles, no banners, only ink, ledgers, and whispered agreements. Imagine a clerk dipping a quill into ink, writing a letter that would travel for weeks and be worth a chest of gold. As money systems matured, coins became more than just tools. They became cultural artifacts. They told stories. One coin might bear the face of a pope, another, the emblem of a city-state. Some were shaped like flowers, others like suns. Some were square, some with holes. They were poetry in metal, and they were collected, even then, kept in boxes, passed to children, sewn into garments for luck. Imagine a grandmother placing a coin in a linen cloth, folding it 3 times, and telling a story as she ties it shut, not for spending, but for memory. By the late Middle Ages, markets thrived across Europe. In Bruges, cloth merchants weighed silver. In London, bakers paid their apprentices. In Prague, students bought candles with Bohemian groschen. Everywhere, coins passed from hand to hand. You might imagine walking through one of those towns now. A twilight sky, bells ringing softly from a nearby church, shop doors closing, a final exchange of coins and nods, a sigh, a smile, a lantern lit, and coins tucked away for tomorrow. The wind blew softly over wide oceans. Wooden ships creaked gently as they carried not only sailors and spices, but coins. In the age of exploration, from the late 1400s onward, coins crossed waters they had never seen before. Spanish galleons carried silver reals from the Americas. Portuguese caravels carried cruzados to India. And Dutch ships, with their sturdy wooden hulls, brought ducats and guilders to the Far East. Coins clinked softly in purses hidden deep in the hold, each one a tiny passenger, glinting faintly in the lantern light below deck. Imagine a quiet sailor at dawn, looking out over a calm horizon, a single coin turning in his fingers, wondering what strange shore it might spend its final days on. In the high mountains of South America, a city called Potosi was carved into stone. Here, beneath layers of earth, the Spanish found a mountain rich in silver. They called it Cerro Rico, the rich hill. From its heart, they drew millions of coins, stamped with the seal of the Spanish crown. These coins, known as pieces of 8, traveled across oceans. Some landed in Chinese markets, others in English taverns. Many were buried under waves by storms and pirates. But the mountain never roared. It whispered, gently, silently feeding the world with coin. Picture a slow train of llamas in the Andes, each carrying sacks of raw silver down winding paths. The only sound, soft hooves on dust and the distant sigh of wind. As new lands were settled, so too were new coins. In the colonies of the Americas, early settlers brought old coins from Europe, but soon needed their own. In Virginia, tobacco sometimes served as money. In Massachusetts, the pine tree shilling was born, a simple silver coin with a tree at its heart. In far-off Canada, French colonists once used playing cards as emergency currency, signed by officials and trusted like coin. It was a time of gentle invention, quiet solutions in quiet towns. Imagine a settler in a wooden cabin, carefully tying a small pouch of coins to the inside of a worn coat, the fire crackling softly behind him. Back in Europe, mints grew quieter but more precise. Coins were now milled, cut with machines that hummed gently, turning blank discs into circles of trust. Edges were given ridges to prevent shaving. Designs became detailed and artistic. In cities like London, Paris, and Vienna, the air around mints was filled with the soft scent of metal, the rhythm of presses, and the quiet focus of workers bent over their craft. Each coin still told a story, but now they also told of machines, of precision, of time changing slowly. Imagine walking past a mint at dusk, the muffled thump of the press, the glow through a small window, the faint smell of metal and wood smoke. Coins were evolving, but softly. Then came something lighter, something quieter: paper. In China, as early as the Tang dynasty, paper money had floated into use. Backed by the emperor's trust, it traveled the empire with ease, folded neatly, carried gently, handed over like a message. Europe was slower to adopt it. But as trade grew and bankers dreamed, paper began to rise. At first, it was a promise, a letter that said, "I owe you." But over time, those promises became trusted, then printed, then universal. A folded note in a velvet pouch, light as a feather, heavy with meaning. Imagine a merchant smoothing a crisp banknote on a desk, then sliding it into a book, quietly, beneath a rose-petal bookmark. Whether stamped in silver or printed on paper, currency is trust. Not loud, not flashy, but quiet, steady, carried in pockets, tied in cloth, hidden in boots, tucked into books. It binds markets, builds cities, crosses oceans. It is a whisper between strangers. I believe this means something, and always it evolves. The coins of kings, the notes of bankers, the shells, the stones, the stamps, they all hum the same soft tune, a lullaby of value, a song of time. Picture a child counting coins on a stone floor, a fire nearby, a story being told in the background, and the softest of clinks echoing in the heart of night. As the world entered the 18th and 19th centuries, the map of money began to match the map of nations. Countries printed their own banknotes, minted their own coins, and told their stories through symbols, faces, and fonts. The British pound, the French franc, the American dollar, all came to represent not just economies, but identities. Each note was a quiet ambassador, each coin a tiny monument. Imagine a gentleman in a quiet Paris cafe, counting francs to pay for tea, each coin cool in his palm, each note crisp from the folds of his coat pocket. Outside, horses clatter down cobblestones. Inside, only the whisper of paper and the soft swirl of steam. As the quiet rhythm of nations grew louder in trade and travel, it became clear that money needed guardians, steady hands to guide its flow. And so, central banks were born, not in noisy bursts, but in gradual steps. In Sweden, the Riksbank began in the 1600s, but others followed, quietly, with purpose. The Bank of England, the Federal Reserve in the United States, and many more. These banks were not the bustling market stalls of old. They were places of quiet meetings, of slow, deliberate decisions. Vaults deep underground, ledgers in calm handwriting, a steady pulse at the center of economies. Imagine a banker sitting in a tall room of polished wood, dipping a pen into inkwell, recording interest rates by candlelight as snow falls gently outside the window. As printing presses hummed, coins didn't vanish. They simply became more familiar. Nickels, pennies, rupees, francs, they jingled in coat pockets, rested in drawers, and clinked into the hands of children. National coins were designed with care, symbols of liberty, of unity, of monarchs and farmers. And in every home, somewhere, there was a little jar or tin where loose change quietly gathered. In quiet marketplaces, vendors gave back exact change with a soft smile. In city trains, ticket windows clinked with tiny discs of brass and silver. Picture a grandmother sitting near a fire, rolling coins into neat paper sleeves, her glasses perched low and a cup of tea nearby, still steaming. Before money could live in screens or apps, it lived in leather. Wallets became common. Folded quietly into pockets, they carried currency, photographs, and small scraps of memory. And then came checks, sheets of paper that promised value, written in cursive and handed across desks. They were quiet contracts, elegant in their slowness, a pause in the fast world of trade. Businesses trusted them, families used them, and banks processed them with soft stamps and silent clerks. Imagine a quiet shopkeeper at dusk, counting the day's checks and slipping them into a drawer, closing it gently as the shop lights fade. In time, electricity brought new whispers into the world of money. Telegraphs sent financial messages in Morse code. Telephones clicked softly between bankers. And then, computers arrived. Slow at first, large and humming. Digital ledgers replaced paper ones. Cards replaced coins in some hands. And soon, money was not always something you could feel, but something you could see on a screen. Yet it remained quiet. Transfers beeped softly. ATMs dispensed notes with a gentle rustle, and phones, now cradled in palms, could move currency from one heart to another with a single tap. Imagine a quiet room at night, a desk lamp glowing, someone gently reviewing their digital budget on an old laptop, window open, breeze fluttering the curtains. Now, coins and notes whisper in hundreds of languages, from the colorful rupees of India to the sleek polymer bills of Australia, from crisp Swiss francs to soft Japanese yen. Each is a quiet poem in paper and metal. Some show birds, others show bridges, a few show thinkers, poets, or peaceful landscapes. They travel silently in wallets, pockets, handbags, and tills, crossing borders, finding homes in unfamiliar hands. And though their colors and names vary, they all speak the same soft promise: I am trusted. Picture a small market at dawn, somewhere far away. A vendor sets out her goods, spices, cloth, dried fruit, and counts a few local bills as roosters call gently in the distance. Many people no longer carry coins every day, and yet in drawers and boxes, they keep them. Old coins found in gardens, coins saved from travels, a lucky penny, a silver dollar, a worn rupee from a great-grandfather's trunk. These aren't just money, they're stories. They remind us of long walks, of distant cities, of people we loved. And so we keep them, not for spending, but for remembering. Imagine a little wooden box on a bedroom shelf. Inside, coins from many lands, resting in soft cloth, a quiet collection of memories, silent but not forgotten. Now, currency continues to change. Digital wallets, cryptocurrency, contactless cards. Money moves faster, quieter, almost invisible, but its purpose remains the same: to help, to exchange, to say, I trust you. And no matter how it's shaped, metal or code, paper or promise, it always carries a whisper from the past. Coins once clinked in ancient Rome, sailed on Viking ships, nestled in silk purses in China, and slept beneath pillows in Tudor homes. Now they rest in your pocket or your phone. But their song remains unchanged, soft, rhythmic, peaceful. And tonight, as you lie here, drifting slowly, you might imagine them gently tumbling across time, glinting, glowing, whispering stories in the dark. The softest clink, a hush of paper, a quiet drawer closing, a warm light fading. History doesn't always speak in loud voices. Sometimes it hums, softly, so you can sleep. So now, let the past curl around you like a soft blanket. Let the coins rest, let the pages close, and let yourself drift into quiet dreams where history breathes gently and time moves like silk. Good night.